The Pylon, a Midwest college football podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Satkoviak. Rivalry week has come and gone, and with it, another college football regular season. Clinton, how sad? How sad? How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I was pretty elated on Saturday, obviously, that Ohio State snapped the 4-game losing streak to the team up north. So I was very thankful to have that. It was an interesting Thanksgiving weekend, Wednesday to now. Everybody in the house has had a touch of something. Elliot was the most impacted by all of us when he popped a fever on Wednesday. So that kind of threw all of our Thanksgiving plans into a whirl. But we got everything in. We got all the travel in. We had just the four of us Thanksgiving here on Thursday, and now it's back to the work week for a normal work and school schedule. So I'm pretty happy for that. Ryan, how are you?
I am not happy for that. This week is going to hit me like a ton of bricks, and I am not really ready for it, to be honest with you. I enjoyed not doing anything the last 4 days. It's been awesome. It's been cathartic. I don't even know if it's been relaxing. It's been relaxing. I don't know if it's been recharging, if that's maybe the right word to use.
Did you have your Thanksgiving steak?
I did have a Thanksgiving steak. It was very good. I think it was a little too medium. Usually more medium rare. I think I overcooked it just a smidge, but what?
Medium rare. I tried it once. Can't do it. Medium is about where I'm at. Can't do medium rare.
No, I like it a little chewy.
Getting too chewy for me.
You
I
get the
grew up.
crisp on the outside, you get the chewy on the
I
inside.
feel like you and I maybe have talked about this. When I grew up, everything was cooked well done. Not like hockey puck well done, but
That's
thoroughly cooked.
disgusting. That's so
And
gross.
so
There's no flavor.
I know everybody would ask me, like, "Why you eat your steak with ketchup?" I'm like, "Well, if you ate well done steak all the time, you'd probably want to have something wet to eat it with too." I don't eat my steak with anything now. I just eat it with the steak juice that comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the boys' favorite part of steak is dipping their steak in the steak juice, and then if you get like a roll on the side or put it on
Mm-hmm.
your
Mm-hmm.
potatoes, it's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah, I used to do like either like A1 dipping sauce or I would like marinate it in A1. And then I realized that you don't need to do that if you have a good cut of meat and I got a job and
All right.
I could afford to buy real steak.
Do you want to say hi now?
Hi.
There you go. All right. Elliot wanted to make his first ever appearance on the podcast. Give me the remote. And he
A
wanted to say
monumental
hi.
day. A
Yes,
monumental day
he's
indeed.
he's been in the background before. Accidentally heard when we had Richie for Rutgers on in our fall preview, but now he got to make his actual debut. So there we go. A future podcaster we have here in Elliot. So no man, it's been a great 4 days, but I am opposite of you. I'm ready for some normalcy. When kids are predicated on schedules, it's it gets kind of wicked when they're not on them. Plus, when
I
they're
feel
sick.
that.
So I'm ready to also just eat normal meals again.
I
We only
do
had
second that.
one.
I do second that.
Yeah,
I have had back pain this weekend, and I think it's because I've eaten like shit for 5 days. And aside from, I'll walk the dog in the morning, I'll walk for an hour on the treadmill, and then I will not move the rest of the day. I'm like, huh, why did my back hurt?
I told Leah today because I go pretty heavy on desserts during the holidays, and we
Hmm.
always have peanut butter pie. It's tradition. I had some apple pie at her parents' Friday. Had whatever dessert my mom made today. I think it was some type of a pumpkin fall dessert, which was really good. And we rode home from my parents. I'm like, I need a break from the sweets. I think I'm gonna die. I have heartburn. My body is rejecting me.
He's got the
I
diabetes.
just need, yeah. If you have diabetes and you're on Medicare, anyways, Ryan, I think you have something to start us off with tonight. A little coaching carousel update.
Yeah, I want it. So we're gonna go tomorrow night. We'll talk about this a little bit more in depth because there is some Big Ten flavor to it already, and that's not even including the Penn State job, which you're kind of up now, Nittany Lions. Everyone's waiting on you to figure this out. But we'll kind of talk about that situation tomorrow night. We'll talk about the big one for us. Jonathan Smith is out at Michigan State. They finally won a game, the end of their 8-game losing streak, and then they fired their coach anyway, which I think we all kind of saw the writing on the wall with that. And considering how quickly the rumored Pat Fitzgerald deal has come together, I would venture a guess that that's something that they've probably been working on for a minute or two now. So We'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow night, but I just wanted to real quick recap where everything stands at this point on Sunday evening, November 30th, 8:27 p.m. The big one of the day was Lane Kiffin is officially going to LSU from Ole Miss. He will not be coaching the Rebels in the college football playoff. That job has gone to Pete Golding, their defensive coordinator. They haven't even given the interim tag to him. They have just given him the full-time job. He has been promoted to the next head coach at Ole Miss. Elsewhere, with some potential playoff flavor on this one as well, John Summerall, the Tulane head coach, will be the next head coach at Florida. Eric Morris, the North Texas head coach, this was announced last week, but just a reminder, he will be the new head coach at Oklahoma State. Those are two coaches who could be in the college football playoff, Clinton, depending on how things shake out at the bottom. And then the two other ones announced today in the SEC, Alex Golesh, an Ohio State alum, and South Florida's head coach is going to Auburn, and Ryan Silverfield going from Memphis to Arkansas. Just wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit before we get into the recap from the weekend, but we'll discuss this a little bit more in depth tomorrow night.
Which one did you and I say we thought was Pat Fitzgerald? Did we say Wisconsin or did we say Michigan State?
I think we said Wisconsin.
Okay, that's what I thought we said because
Or
that
Penn
seems more his style.
I think someone mentioned Penn State at one point for him, but I don't know if that was us and we were commenting. It wasn't us. I don't know if we were commenting on that or not.
Yeah, I think it was definitely we were. I think we were Wisconsin. I agree. That just feels more like just a better Northwestern. Of course, not at this time, but
yeah, no, they're not the same as Northwestern. No. But keeping it in the Big Ten, Clinton, let's talk about the big one of the weekend. The monkey is finally off their back. Ohio State 27, Michigan 9. I got to tell you, man, early in this game, it had that here we go again vibe, right? Michigan, they got 47 or 46 yards on their first two plays from scrimmage, but the Ohio State defense buckles down, forces a field goal. And then on the second play of the game, Ohio State runs. Julian Sayin is intercepted. Michigan returns it into Ohio State territory. But again, the Ohio State defense holds to a field goal. And then I think they settled in, especially on offense, well after that. They responded with their own long field goal drive. And then they got 2 second-quarter touchdowns around another Michigan field goal to take a 17-9 lead going into half, which the way that game started, that had to have been good for them. You go into halftime, you're not having to calm people down. You're not having to chase. You can give the speech like, look, we have them right where we want them. We have an 8-point lead. Let's go out there and finish this. And I got to say, Clinton, for me, it's encouraging, and we kind of talked about this a little bit pre-show. I think we probably talked about this a little bit last year. You don't have to win this game by being Michigan. You have to be this game by being Ohio State. But Ohio State finished this game off sort of how Michigan kind of has the last 4 years, just with suffocating defense in the second half and ball possession. Ohio State's second half drives in this one, Clinton, they went 8 plays, 34 yards. It ended in a punt, but it took almost 5 minutes off the clock. They had a 2-play, 57-yard touchdown drive that took less than a minute, but then the big one, 20 plays, 81 yards, almost 12 full minutes off the clock, ends in a field goal. It makes it 27-9, and it basically, for all intents and purposes, it ended the game at that point. I don't remember the exact number, Clinton. I think it was something like Michigan had 106 yards rushing in the first half, and they finished with 100 yards for the game. So that Ohio State defense, they got a couple times in the first half. I mean, notably the big first run from Jordan Marshall that went for 36 yards. But after that, it was just an absolute shutdown by Matt Patricia's unit.
Yeah, actually, Ryan, it was Michigan ran for 115 yards in the first half and then finished with 100 rushing.
Even worse.
Yeah. And 2 carries really made up the bulk of that rushing in the first half that they had. You mentioned a 36-yard run for Marshall, but Hoodzall also had a 22-yard run for Michigan there. This is the first time since 2019, Ryan, that Ohio State's won the rushing battle. We've talked about it for 2 years, but they talk about it every year for this game. And Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel are both noted. I'm sure Harbaugh has mentioned this too, that the team that wins the rushing battle tends to usually win the game. Now, again, that doesn't, as you mentioned, doesn't need to be Ohio State's main point of emphasis when they come into this game, but it holds true here. Ohio State wins the rushing battle. You know, you look at the trenches here, and what did we see last year, and what did we see through this 4-year win streak for Michigan? Is they just whipped on Ohio State up front, just out physical them. And you're right, as an Ohio State fan and sitting there with my brother-in-law, when Jordan Marshall ripped off that 36-yard run, I was like, here we go. Doesn't matter. New year, elite defense isn't going to matter. And then the D buckled down. And then I'm not going to lie, I got a little bit panicky on the Julian Sayin interception. Not that I doubted Sayin at all, but I was like, that was a very forced, misread ball to Smith. That was a drop back, and I'm just throwing it to him. Doesn't matter what it looks like, and he did. That just was not a good throw, which happens, right? It's a big game, but it really didn't seem to faze him at all, man. He wasn't under pressure really much of the day at all. He just got to sit back there, throw the rock, and looked California cool like he normally does as the snow glazed the field for the rest of the day. And then I look at Ohio State's D-line. After those big runs and that kind of that, I think they were at 110 by 8 minutes left in the second quarter. After that, they buckled down and they just absolutely stuffed Michigan, especially Caden McDonald, man. He is an absolute monster. Number 98, if you guys aren't familiar, in the middle of that Ohio State defense. Ohio State's defense also held Michigan to 1 of 9 on third down, and time of possession was a huge advantage to Ohio State. They had 40 minutes to Michigan's 20. So now, again, as Ryan mentioned, some of those later in the game with the long drives, that contributed to that separation there. In our preview episode on, I almost said Thursday, on Wednesday, I asked if Ohio State took Michigan's run game away, could Bryce Underwood win it for him with his arm? And I think that answer was a resounding no. And again, it is affected based on weather and how game flow goes. But he was 8 of 18 for 63 yards and 1 interception. You talked about the Ohio State game plan, as did I pre-show or in the Pick'em show. It felt like a pretty good balance. I know at the end you look, it's 47 rushes to 26 passes. But again, that late game scenario kind of changed. Ohio State just pretty much went all run there at the end of the game to run the clock out. And you talked about Matt Patricia's defense, man. That looks like the best coaching hire of the offseason or season, however you want to reference it. I would say a good 90 to 95% of people laughed at that hire and thought it would just blow up in Ohio State's face. Well, they only allowed 93 points in the regular season, Ryan. 12 games, 93 points, 7.8 points per game, and only 203 yards per game. Meanwhile, the former Ohio State defensive coordinator, while at Penn State, allowed 334 yards per game, 21 points per game, and 257 points in 12 games. And another shout out here, the Patricia D in year one versus Michigan, 163 total yards. Knowles' defense, 2024, 252 yards, 2023, 338 yards, and 2022, a whopping 530 yards given up. So Matt Patricia, fantastic hire by Ryan Day. You know, you looked early in the game at Ryan Day. Apparently, when he walked out of the tunnel, Michigan fans were berating him. They were throwing stuff at him. Whatever it was going on. And Day just looked at him and smirked, and then he walked on the field. And one thing the beat writers said with this was that Ryan Day hasn't had a smile with this game in the past 4 years. And he was able to smile for the first time coming into this game. So, huge win for Ohio State. I'm really happy as a fan to have them get that monkey off the back, and now I'm looking forward to them squaring off with the Indiana Hoosiers next week. And what a kind of a beautiful ending with the snow just atop the field as we cap that off.
I bet they enjoyed their trip back to Columbus because it was we got a lot of snow after that. But let's I want to start, Clinton, kind of going through the playoff teams, playoff hopeful games here. So let's just kind of pivot to that Indiana game next real quick. They held up their end of the bargain as well Friday night, a 56-3 win against Purdue to clinch their first 12-0 regular season in program history and set up a 12-0 matchup for the Big Ten title. It will be a 1 versus 2 matchup. There will be no controversy over that ranking with Texas A&M's loss, which I believe, Clinton, is this the first 1 versus 2 matchup in the Big Ten since 2006 Ohio State, Michigan?
Yeah, and that was not even obviously when we had a Big Ten championship, right? That was just end of season matchup.
Yeah, it was just
I think
kind
the
of
best we got.
It was like a de facto Big Ten title game at that point.
Best we've gotten, I think, it's 2v3 Ohio State, Michigan a couple times. But again, that was not in a Big Ten championship scenario. So to have two teams go 12-0 and make it to the end of the season, thoroughly impressive, Ryan. And I know people were well, I've seen multiple people just tweet out that, you know, here's the SEC matchup, here's this matchup, and then, we have a relatively disappointing Big Ten matchup.
Well, I don't know. See,
what's
the thing
disappointing about it?
I don't think it's disappointing. I think the point that people are making is they're both probably getting a bye anyway, so there's not really stakes, big picture stakes for this. There's and that's fine to say from like a big picture standpoint, but if you're an Ohio State fan, if you're an Indiana fan, especially if you're a fucking Indiana fan, man, you
Mm-hmm.
want to win this game desperately.
100%.
I think it would be the first Big Ten title for Indiana since 1967, I saw today. Obviously, the first one for Ohio State since 2020, which obviously not as long, but if you're an Ohio State fan and you're used to getting everything you want, having to wait 5 years for anything probably feels like an eternity. Fuck you, Clinton. But as far as this game itself, I don't know that we learned anything other than 28 and a half was not enough points, and I profited on that. And then I proceeded to lose it all on Saturday. Watching this game, though, really the only thing I was thinking as this was going on was Indiana was doing exactly what I needed for them to be doing to prolong my Jeremiah Love Heisman bet, because I thought that there was a chance that Cignetti would come in and try to stat pad for Fernando Mendoza in this game. And I don't know if they just didn't want to do that or what the thought process was, but he didn't look super sharp early, and they didn't really. I mean, he only threw it 16 times. But it's just not a game that we can extrapolate any more than we already know. It's a suffocating defense that Indiana has. They run the ball exceptionally well if they are playing someone that they can push around. But we have seen it this year when they are playing a team that can push back in the line of scrimmage, that they can get bogged down a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about that more on Thursday when we preview the Big Ten title game. But my only Heisman take on the Mendoza versus Sayin versus whoever else is, whoever the more electric QB is in the Big Ten title game, is probably going to be your Heisman Trophy winner. Jeremiah Love is out after last night. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And with Diego Pavia not playing this weekend, it's hard for me to see him getting enough steam over one of these guys, unless both of these guys just come out and fucking bomb, and it's a 7-6 slugfest or something like that, and the defensive players and the running game are far more impressive. Then I could see it, because Diego Pavia has very much had a very worthy Heisman season, and I think you can make an argument that as far as like most outstanding players in college football go, a true most valuable player, if you will, he means far more to his team than Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza do, and that's not a knock on either of those two players. It's just you look at the infrastructure that has been built around them versus what is at Vanderbilt. That team is Diego Pavia. At least that offense. They have a good defense, but that offense it rides and dies with Diego Pavia. So that's all I'll say.
He's also 30 years old playing a bunch of 18-year-olds.
Also true. His brother also got arrested during the game for drunken disorderly conduct.
And his mom was she soliciting herself on the wall again for his Heisman candidacy?
I actually did not pay too close of attention to that game. I just kind of had it on in the quad box.
Listen, he has made Vandy fun. There's no doubt about it. But I believe I read something, and I wasn't for sure really when the technical Heisman votes were supposed to be in. We typically know they're in before conference title weekend, but
I don't think that's a thing anymore. I think they're not allowed to submit them until after the games.
Yes. So Nicole Auerbach, I think, was the one that brought up that there's like an additional extended deadline. There's something to try to encourage these people to make sure they're paying attention to championship weekend.
Well,
with
I
these
think
two
the
battling.
thing that I saw is they're not allowed to submit them until after conference championship weekend. That doesn't mean you can't have made your mind up before
Yes,
then,
but you can't
you're
submit.
not allowed. Yes.
Which is
Which
good.
in theory makes you think about it more.
Yeah. My only piece to this game, Mendoza didn't cook in the way I thought. It was more yardage-wise. He still had 3 TDs, two passing, 1 rushing.
Well, and they ran for 900 yards.
355 yards, 5 TDs, 9.3 yards per carry. So I think they just ran their way straight to Indianapolis, actually. They're still running there.
Yep.
The only thing Purdue won in this game, Ryan, was the time of possession, 33-27. It's another down season for Purdue, but as you and I have said all year, they're improved from 2024. There are brighter days ahead with Barry Odom. As far as Indiana, we're going to get into this on Thursday. I'm intrigued by their run game against Ohio State's defense, and I'm intrigued by their pass rush against Ohio State's offensive line. And I think those are the two ways that Indiana could potentially pull this upset over Ohio State on Saturday, and we'll talk about it later.
I want to talk next about the other Midwest team that will definitely be in the playoff. Oregon 26, Washington 14. I don't know how much of this game you were able to catch in the moment, Clinton, but this was a weird one because at no point in this game did I ever really feel like Washington was a threat to win the game.
I agree.
But they kept hanging around. They kept bending but not breaking on defense, give up long drives to Oregon, hold them to a field goal. And this was a one-score game midway through the fourth quarter until a coverage bust right after they made it 19-14 allowed Oregon to extend that advantage to 26-14. I think it was Benson who had the long catch from Dante Moore. The Ducks defense was salty throughout this game, but really salty early in this one. 3 and outs on the first 2 drives for Washington. Third drive, they punted again after Washington was able to get across midfield. They buckled down, and then they had an interception in the end zone. And I think that was kind of a turning point in the game. So it was only 3-0 at that point. Washington's driving down the field. Not a great throw by Damon Williams, but then Oregon responded to that. It was a touchback. They get the ball at the 20. They won a 14-play, 80-yard touchdown drive that made it 10-0. And from that point forward, Oregon really kind of kept them at arm's length.
Yeah, it was a pretty ugly first quarter. You kind of mentioned 5 punts, 1 field goal, INT. What did Roman mention to us last Monday? He mentioned that Washington needed to get a fast start, and they did anything but that.
Yep.
Their only points was a 3-yard TD pass to Denzel Boston right before the half. I'm sorry, in the first half. That was their only points. You know, Washington did what you could ask. They won the rushing battle 154-106. They only allowed the Ducks to do 2.5 yards per carry, which is really impressive against this run offense. Keep an eye on Adam Muhammad leading this backfield next year. He's very good. He's had over 50 yards the last 4 games, and he's eclipsed 100 in the last 2. Ryan mentioned it, though, man. It's the Ducks' pass defense. Just stifled Damon Williams. And just side note on Damon Williams Jr., it's been a really solid year for him. I expect bigger and better things for him next year. Hopefully at times in big games they find better ways to utilize his best ability, which might be his legs. But they did hold him to that was a season low in passing yards. You already mentioned the interceptions. And they held first-round pick, most likely first-round pick, Denzel Boston to 4 catches for 25 yards, man. And he did have the 2 touchdowns. They were short red zone TDs. Roman also said Washington must make tackles to win. Well, on the Malik Benson touchdown you mentioned, that sealed the game pretty much. They missed 2 tackles, or he broke 2 tackles, whatever you want to call it. There were 2 missed tackles on that led to that score. My other my other point, goodness sakes, to shout out Atticus Sappington, 4 for 4, man, including a clear long of 51 yards. If he doesn't hit those, this game probably goes a different way with Washington pushing in. So it's good to have good special teams. Ask Kirk Ferentz. He'll tell you all about it. I'm excited to see, man, if there's a playoff game, should be a playoff game sitting in Autzen. I feel bad for the opponent who's going to have to walk in there and face them because this team is loaded on defense. If they can get healthy on offense, which maybe they've been pulling on Ohio State. Maybe they've been waiting patiently to get Gary Bryant Jr. and DeCorian Moore and maybe an Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart clearly is feeling okay. He's doing TikTok dances and posting it while during his therapy sessions. So if they can get those guys back, Oregon becomes potentially pretty deadly, at least in the first round, because they're hosting that game.
And overall, I mean, this game was kind of emblematic for me of the Washington season. Some success against better defenses, but it was more fits and spurts and really consistently to struggle moving the ball in the toughest games that they played this year. And good defense overall, but just couldn't quite get the stops when you needed them. Yep. But 8-4 with Florida hiring John Summerall. I'm assuming Jed Fish is coming back. So year 3, chance to build that. They'll have to replace some guys, but should be an exciting offseason for Washington fans. We'll see their bowl matchup with a chance to get to 9 wins. A good step in the right direction after getting gutted prior to last season. So good.
Side note, I know we're going to talk about tomorrow night. I kind of like the Summerall hire more than I would have if Fish went to Florida, to be honest.
I agree. I'm sure Florida fans are going to hate it because it's another G5 coach, but I feel like if you were going to get a G5 coach, that was the one that you wanted to get.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about the one other playoff hopeful that we have, Clinton. I say playoff hopeful because it is not certain. There are some things that can break against Notre Dame that will keep them out of the playoff, and we will have a better idea of how that looks after Tuesday's rankings here. But they took care of business at the fucking ass crack of dawn in a 49-20 win against Stanford. That was not even as close as the score indicated. This game was 35-3 at halftime. It was 42-3 right after the first drives of the third quarter. And then I don't know if it was a body clock thing because it was 1:30 in the morning at this point, or if it was just all the reserves were in. The fucking fourth quarter of this game was weird, man. you had Stanford was moving the ball down the field, and Notre Dame is still throwing the ball. Their last drive of the game after Stanford scored to make it 49-20, they come out with Kenny Minchie and they throw 5 passes to start the drive. There are 4 minutes left in a 29-point game, and you were throwing the ball. And I don't know how much of that was they were trying to score versus they were just sick of Stanford dive bombing 8 people into the line of scrimmage, stopping the run, but that was a little weird. And the announcing crew was God. If I ever hear Brock, I hope I never fucking hear Brock Osweiler call a game again, because this dude doesn't have a goddamn clue what he's doing. Just the whole second half of this game, Clinton, was, talking about the Stanford program and the build under Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck this, Andrew Luck that. Then it was all about the playoff talk, and it's just, guys, I'm not watching a football game to hear you guys talk about the college football playoff. Call the fucking game. It's not that hard.
He was just bored, Ryan. He was bored.
Well, that's what even the color. I don't even remember who the play-by-play guy was. He said at one point, "We'll talk about this in the fourth quarter. It's a 42-3 game. There's not a lot going on here." I'm like, who gives? Jesus fucking Christ! This is not First Take. I don't want to hear you guys talk about the college football playoff.
Yeah, my biggest one from this was CJ Carr was my last player of the night in our college fantasy championship, while the opposing person had Notre Dame's defense. And I'm like, dear God, please don't do what you did last week to Syracuse, because then I might lose. CJ Carr, thank you very much for putting up a nice performance and sealed the deal. I am your 2025 college fantasy champion. But
no one
the
cares.
concern I took from this was texting Ryan just to make sure Jeremiah Love was fine, because if the Irish are in the playoffs, they will certainly need Mr. Love to have success in the playoffs so that they can lean on him. It's another impressive win for Notre Dame. Not the most impressive of opponent, but you can't control your schedule. They're set years in advance. You play the games. When you need to kick ass, you kick ass, and that's what Notre Dame did, and that's what they've consistently done for the most part since their 2 losses. Now, to Ryan's point, things get very interesting on Tuesday night, and we'll see. If Miami is ahead of Notre Dame now, then that, barring something crazy happening, that might spell the end of Notre Dame's chances in the playoffs, because Notre Dame can't jump Miami because neither one of them have a game. And, there's the potential, we'll see this, Duke's in there now. If Duke wins, that gets probably 2 G5 teams in. Like this could be a pretty wonky playoff setup and scenario. I believe multiple people have tweeted out there's 6 teams vying for 2 spots essentially, and it's...
Well, we'll talk about it more tomorrow, because we're in a situation where we're ending up, there's going to be 2 bid thieves. There are going to be 2 teams, the G5, and whether it's a second G5 team or whoever wins the ACC, that's coming from outside the top 12. The issue for Notre Dame and Miami, who are the 2 quote-unquote at-large team on the bubble, is the other 2 bubble teams have a chance to play their way in BYU and Alabama. If BYU and Alabama win this weekend, they are undoubtedly in the field. And that is likely going to come, if both of those teams win, it will come at the expense of both Notre Dame and Miami, because those are the 2 at-large teams who are right on the bubble there. So we're in a situation, Clinton, this year where, with how high Boise was rated last year, we only had 1 bid thief with Clemson coming in. We could have 4 teams ranked outside. Well, I guess Bama and BYU are like right on the bubble. We could have 4 auto bids who are not in the top 10 this year, which moves the cut line up to number 8, which is insane that you have to be a top 8 team to get an at-large spot. But that's not a typical thing, and that's kind of one of those, if it happens, you just tip your cap and say, well, that sucks, we'll get you next year. But I do want to touch on the Love point real quick, because I feel like I kind of glossed over that, because that was a big thing for a minute. Really the biggest thing to watch in this game from a Notre Dame fan, because you knew you weren't going to lose, was what would they let Jeremiah Love do in a game where they didn't need him? Because they came into this game, he was 1 total touchdown away from setting the program's record for touchdowns and all-purpose touchdowns in a single season. He was 2 rushing touchdowns away from setting the single season record, 132 yards rushing away from setting the single season rushing record, and 103 total yards away from setting the single season all-purpose yards record. He had like 53 yards and a touchdown after their first series, and it looked like it was going to be smooth sailing. And then I don't remember if it was second or I think it was their 3rd series, because they didn't play him the 2nd series. He was stuck in a pile. They drove him back, and then a dude kneed him right in the ribs, and he stayed down, and he looked like he was in a fair amount of pain. And the only thing going through my mind was, Jesus Christ, this is going to be the second consecutive year where Notre Dame's best player gets hurt on the last game of the regular season and becomes a non-factor in a playoff run. But he came back. I think he had 14 carries in the game. I think he got 4 of those after the injury. He spoke after the game. He said he was fine right away, but they were being cautious. They wanted to make sure that they were getting x-rays and leaving no stone unturned. And then by the time he came back, it was 42-3. And at that point, it's like, well, we're not going to put you in. I think they put him in just to show that he was healthy, because you don't want that specter hanging over you, especially if you're in a bubble race and then all of a sudden your best player gets hurt in the first quarter and doesn't play. Is he going to play? That might make the committee look at you a little bit differently, but it sounds like bruised ribs. It sounds like he's fine, but kind of sucks because I was really looking forward to seeing him put an emphatic final stamp on a Heisman-worthy season, and he didn't really get the chance to do that, and that sucks. Oh, well.
Absolutely.
Them's the breaks.
Well,
Them's the breaks.
They get in the playoffs, he can make noise there because that's the most important thing.
That's true. He will set all those records in their first round game if they make it to the playoff. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow. We'll kind of talk about the scenarios which could potentially present a trap door even if Notre Dame remains ahead of Miami in the rankings this week. Let's get to the rest of the games, which had rivalry implications and were by and large a fun slate of games, even though they didn't have playoff implications. Iowa 40, Nebraska 16. I loved watching this game. The noon Black Friday game, the snow, the wind, it just felt right for an Iowa-Nebraska game. This is the 10th win in 11 tries for Iowa against Nebraska, which is insane. This was a good, fun back-and-forth game early. It was a really good job by the Iowa defense not breaking, especially early in the second quarter after a muff kickoff could have really put them behind the 8 ball there, but they held Nebraska to a field goal, 13-10 Huskers at this point, and really it kind of started to come apart for Nebraska after that. Iowa countered that with a long touchdown drive of their own to make it 17-13. Nebraska stalled inside the red zone on their next series, settling for another field goal. And then Iowa, in a very un-Iowa fashion, got a quick touchdown in the 2-minute drill right before half to extend it to 24-16. And then the second half was it started completely off the rails. Nebraska forced a punt, but they muffed it. And it took a wild bounce into the end zone for a safety. And at that point, man, it was just off to the races for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, Emmett Johnson, man. I started with Nebraska here in my bullet points. He absolutely cooked.
He was very good.
And that was all that cooked for Nebraska because Latif was bad. I think he finished with 69 yards passing. But
Not
Emmett
nice.
Johnson, 29, 217, and 1 TD, 7.5 yards per carry. He was also their leading receiver, Ryan, too, with 22 yards. It was his 8th 100th yard game of the season and 5th straight. So if something positively ended on the season for Nebraska, it was Mr. Emmett Johnson. And I said in our pregame, or geez, I keep calling it the pregame, in our pick'em show, that this would be an old-fashioned Big Ten run the ball. The teams combined for 82 carries, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
That
There
is
was
a
a lot.
lot
There was a lot.
of pounding the rock. I believe, you've kind of already alluded to these things too, but it was more late second quarter into the third quarter that broke the game open. 3 TDs and a safety for Iowa. That Ja'Cory Barney muff punt, man, was just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal. The Hawkeyes gave up 231 yards in the first half, 69 in the second. That's impressive.
Nice.
D.
Very nice.
Fantastic end of the season for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Close but no cigar in a couple of their games. But again, you expect from a Kirk Ferentz team, play defense, win the special teams battle, and you're going to be in a lot of your games. Some of these high-powered offenses you're going to end up being overmatched on. There's just not much you can do about it. I'm with you. I hope and I wish Gronowski could have another season because I think it'd be something to build on for them.
Mm-hmm.
But you turn around and look at Nebraska, man. It's a bummer end of the season for them. They dropped 4 of their last 6. They started 5-1. Last year, similar, started 6-1 and finished 7-5, and they're finishing 7-5 again this year.
Mm-hmm.
Add to the fact they now face the possibility that Dylan Raiola will be transferring.
Mm-hmm.
That's a double whammy. You do get to keep Matt Rule, but you might be QB shopping.
Well, yeah, that's
Fly out to Cal for Segapuatele and see if the left-handed magician.
No, he's
can
not
be
going
the
to
Huskers
Nebraska.
quarterback. No, he's not.
I think he said he's staying at Cal regardless of what happens with the coaching search, but we'll see when
Well,
fucking.
that's okay because he's only a sophomore and he can leave in his junior year.
No,
if he
that's true.
absolutely needs
Well,
to.
also when someone comes calling with a $4 million offer, that's going to be
A
hard to say
la
no to.
Miami or Texas Tech.
Yeah, I could see that too. And that's kind of the point that I wrote around Nebraska. This is going to, Iowa first. I really hope that they get the quarterback right this offseason, whether it's in-house or the transfer portal, because it's been enjoyable to watch them with competent quarterback play the last couple of weeks. And it makes you wonder, given the amount of close games they played this season, that if you took this Iowa team back and put them against Oregon, well, maybe that's not a great example because it was earlier this month, but you take them back, you put them against Iowa State, you take them back, you put them against Indiana, does that game play out differently? Very possible, but that's not how the sport works. So hopefully they get that right this offseason, because it could be a fun year for Iowa next year for sure. But with Nebraska, you touched on the record. You touched on the noise around Dylan Raiola. You just gave Matt Rule a fat contract extension to keep him away from Penn State, and you ended up finishing with the same record as last year. It is going to be a very interesting offseason in Lincoln because I don't know that he starts next season on the hot seat per se, but it's not going to be quiet this offseason, especially if your quarterback leaves. You went 7-5 again. This was supposed to be year 3 Matt Rule. You take a step forward. You started 5-1 again, and you fell apart in the second half of the season. This is becoming a theme. You have to break that next year, or else you might be in trouble heading into 2027. I don't know how much the extension buys you job security, because I'm sure he's got a fat fucking buyout now, but that might be the best thing going for, because it's certainly not the on-field product per se. But shout out to Emmett Johnson. He finishes with, bowl game pending. He's at 1,451 yards rushing with another 370 yards receiving. He got 46 catches this year. I mean, he's a fucking great all-purpose back. And he's not the most explosive player, and I think that kind of hurts you in awards discussions, but he's very productive, and I would expect him to be on a lot of Doak Walker short lists going into next year.
Emmett Johnson?
Yes.
Is he not draft eligible?
I think he's only a sophomore. I could be making that up.
While you break into our next game, I will find out, because he's 22. So.
Oh, here, hold on. Now he's a junior.
Yeah, he's gone. He's going pro. After this type of year, absolutely. Unless he hits the portal. I don't think he's going to be back in Nebraska.
I don't think it necessarily means portal, especially if you're going to be a day 3. Like, if you don't think you're going to test well, you're going to be a day 3 running back. It's going to be more profitable for you to come back to college.
Yeah. He's got to test well. You're right. You are correct. But look at like a Kyle Monungai, man. He's starting to make his name now with the Bears. He's getting more and more carries every week.
He also was a guy who came back for his senior year.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very true. Very true.
Next, we had the Victory Bell game, USC 29, UCLA 10. USC opened this game with an excellent touchdown drive and then proceeded to shoot themselves in the face almost exclusively for 35 minutes of game time until they scored a go-ahead touchdown with 25 seconds left in the third quarter. Clinton, they had 4 drives in the first half. They had the long touchdown drive, then they had a 10-play 47-yard drive that ended in a missed field goal, a 12-play 63-yard drive that ended in a missed field goal, and then the end of half drive. It was a very slow, methodical game. To encapsulate the kind of action we got in this game, in the second half, UCLA had a 10-play, 33-yard drive that took half the third quarter off the clock, and it ended with a 4th and 13 punt from the USC 42. How is that mathematically possible? That you go 33 yards, you kill half of the quarter clock, and you punt from almost midfield. That is insane.
That's football for you, baby.
I was paying attention. I had this game in the quad box when the Iron Bowl was on, and that was a much better game, so it had more of my attention. I had the sound on it, and I kept looking up, and I'm like, why is it 10-7 right now? What is happening in this game? There was just not a lot going on.
This whole game was puzzling, man. Lane and Lemon didn't even play the first few series. Lemon didn't play the whole first quarter.
Makai Lemon was suspended for the first quarter for a violation of team policy.
Yes,
whatever that means.
Bro, I didn't know that. I'm sitting here trying to win a damn fantasy championship. Lemon's been my best receiver all year, and I'm looking at the stats. I'm like, why is this? Because we watched the last episode of Stranger Things last night for the first batch of 4, and I'm like, why does this motherfucker not have any stats? What is going on? Did he just get held out of the game? Did he opt out? I'm like, this is not good for me. And then, he got his 1-catch, 32-yard touchdown, and that was about all he needed. But you mentioned it, just overall kind of puzzling game. The uniform matchup is not puzzling. That is a beautiful setup between those two teams. Great. King Miller, man, another stellar performance, 17, 124, 2 TDs. I would assume this young man is no longer a walk-on. I would hope. Have we seen
There's no
seen
way.
something, hopefully, that he has a scholarship because he's done fantastic for USC. He is a freshman. USC has their back for the next 2 seasons. You mentioned USC being down at half. Well, when you miss 2 field goals, that happens.
And only have 3 real drives in the first half.
You know, we gave Nico a lot of flack coming into this season, Ryan, and kind of deservedly so with how everything ended at Tennessee, but he's tough as nails, man, and he never stops fighting. That is one thing I do like
sure.
about him. He could have easily quit on this team.
Yep, he did not.
The coaching staff changes happened. There's nothing around him. He already came here and he knew that, and that's being disrespectful to the players. There are things around him, but not enough to make them competitive in the way that they need to be. And he fights hard, man, and it's going to be really interesting to see if he stays, and if he does stay, who the new coach is and what they put around him. Because he's a talented guy. And certainly possible he could be a viable name in the portal again this year. And I think he's earned some respect back, I think, nationally for what he's kind of went through.
He's not going to be like, he'll be the guy that like Florida State goes after, or like a mid-P.
And I don't know if he would change that. If you get the right staff in to put people around him, he's got another good year.
Oh, for sure. If Bob Chesney is coming your way from JMU, is that an offense that you want to play in?
Absolutely.
Maybe. Yeah. Potentially.
I mean, if it's everybody wants the Signetti 2.0. It was like a few years back, right, when everybody wanted the Sean McVay tree. Give me Sean McVay. Give me Sean McVay. Guys like Sean McVay. So we'll see what happens. And for USC, a good finish to this game. This is another game that last year's USC probably loses. And this was a big step in the right direction for the Trojans this year. 9-3 is something to build on. I know it's not good enough. You want to be in the playoff. You want to be 10-2. Guess what? You had your chances. You choked and lost to Illinois. You shouldn't have lost that game.
Yep.
But you have a very stout schedule in 2026.
Yep.
So buckle up, boys.
There's
because 9-3 might be your best option next year.
Yeah, you're going to need
Lemon
to.
and Lane will not be back. I don't.
They're going to need to hit the portal hard for some receivers and probably some offensive line help.
Players. You're going to have to get some defensive players too.
Yeah, that's a tough schedule next year.
Yeah. So great season overall for the Trojans. Not quite how UCLA wanted it to finish, but again, they were impressive. Tough to put away in certain games, and obviously the Penn State game is the miraculous upset.
Yeah, I think 3-9 probably feels about right. They did not take the path that I thought that they would take to get to 3-9. I thought that was going to be like a New Mexico. And it's kind of funny looking back on. I think New Mexico might end up being one of the better teams they actually played this year, which is funny when you think about it in hindsight. They get UNLV too. They played probably two of the best G5 teams.
UNLV is in the
hold on
Mountain West Championship.
Yes, which was determined by computer rankings, which is hilarious.
State UNLV rematch.
Yes. Yeah, if you look at their schedule overall, I mean, New Mexico and UNLV maybe better than Northwestern, better than Penn State, better than Michigan State, better than Maryland, not better than Indiana, better than Nebraska? Maybe?
I mean, possibly.
That's
Nebraska
crazy.
without Dylan Raiola, I would argue maybe yes, but not
I would say there is definitively only 4 Big Ten teams on this schedule, that being Ohio State, Indiana, Washington, and USC, that are definitively better than UNLV and New Mexico ended up being this year.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Very funny. And they also played Utah as a top 15 team and beat the shit out of them to start the season. But anyway, I digress. Let's go to the next one. Paul Bunyan's Axe, Minnesota 17, Wisconsin 7. This was, Clinton, the quintessential Midwest football game. Snow. They painted the numbers on the field black so you could see them. It was awesome. I think Wisconsin, when we picked it, or when I put the line in, it was Minnesota minus 1.5. I think Wisconsin actually closes a favorite in this game, which I guess kind of made sense given the juice that people think that they might have had the last couple of weeks. But to me, Minnesota always felt like the better team, which is why I picked them. Good for me. The scoring drives in this game, Clinton, it was funny looking back at the drive chart because this game was just a mess. But the scoring drives in this one, Minnesota's field goal was 7 plays for 20 yards. Minnesota's first touchdown, they went 3 plays, 55 yards, and that was almost all on Darius Taylor's 49-yard rushing touchdown. Wisconsin had a 7-play, 75-yard drive that was set up by a 67-yard catch and run from Hunter Simmons to Vinny Anthony, got him down to the 5-yard line, and then it took them 4 plays to get in from the 5, and they still might not have actually scored because I don't know if the guy actually had possession of the ball in bounds. And then Minnesota's last touchdown was 3 plays, 16 yards. This was ugly. This was an ugly game, which tends to happen when there's a snow game. But Darius Taylor hit 100 yards on 19 carries, again, 49 of those coming on one rush, but a notable feat against what has been a very good Wisconsin rush defense this year. Hunter Simmons actually passed for 100 yards in this game, 162 yards passing, but he threw 2 interceptions, including one on a 3rd and 7 Clinton when they were in the red zone with a chance to tie the game with a field goal late in the game. It got returned 68 yards all the way back deep into Wisconsin territory, which set up the last Minnesota touchdown, which was, I think, early in the fourth quarter, kind of put this one out of reach. Overall, though, Minnesota, they do what they do. A perfectly fine 7-5 team with a chance to get to 8 in the bowl game. On the other side of the field, though, for Wisconsin, this one probably feels like a bit of a missed opportunity, given how it played out and given how they closed the season relatively strong. Chance to get to 5-7, but they fall to 4-8.
I believe this is the most losses Wisconsin's had, I think, ever since 2011, something like that, around there. It's been a long time. This is 4 out of 5 for Minnesota, 4 wins in the past 5 years. And it's also back-to-back years that Minnesota's defense has only allowed 1 Badgers offensive touchdown. They held Wisconsin to 4 of 13 on 3rd down. If you want to win a game on the road, especially in the weather that you were playing in, you must be better on 3rd down. Listen, when you're a bad team, you don't do very well on 3rd down to begin with. Otherwise, you might be in more games. So clearly a spot that Wisconsin needs to be targeting improving this offseason if they want to have better chances. You mentioned the weather. Anytime a field can get covered in snow, it is absolutely gorgeous. Minnesota played it smart, man, with their game plan. They ran the ball, and in the pass game, they utilized screen passes and out routes. 18 of 24, 90 yards, Drake Lindsey. It feels very surprising to me that Wisconsin actually outpassed an opponent. Or I should say 2025 Wisconsin, because it doesn't feel possible. Huge win for Minnesota, as you said. Disappointing season overall for Wisconsin. Here's the cheers and hoping that they actually spend money in the portal to get something more feasible on the field next year, because Wisconsin also has some important games next year. Notre Dame, USC being 2 of them, obviously Minnesota. Here's a fun stat. By going 7-0 at Huntington Bank Stadium this year, Ryan, the Gophers went unbeaten at home for the first time since 1967.
Wow.
When they tied for first in the 10-team Big Ten with, can you name the 2 teams, Ryan?
Well, Ohio State's probably in there because they fucking finish first every year.
Incorrect. It's the Indiana and Purdue.
Oh, my gosh.
That's why I asked that, because I'm like, never going to get this.
There, you were correct. Well, it was back when there were actually 10 teams in the Big Ten.
Yes,
a simpler time.
When it was the true Big Ten.
When it was actually a Big Ten, and now we're calling them the Big Ten for some god knows why reason, because there's 18 fucking teams in there. I did not have this one as a shootout on my bingo card, Clinton. Penn State 40, Rutgers 36. This game was wild. Insane. The key play, about 7:30 left in this game. Rutgers had the ball at the Penn State 32-yard line with a 3-point lead. They were driving to put this one out of reach. Ethan Kaliak-Manis runs it up the middle and fumbles. Amari Campbell returns it 61 yards for the score and the 40-36 advantage. Rutgers still moved the ball well on the next drive. They got down to the 28 on a 2nd and 2 with just under 5 to go, but 3 straight runs netted 0 yards and a turnover on downs. And Penn State was able to kill the last 4 minutes with a 9-play drive, including a 3-yard 4th and 2 pass from Ethan Grunkemeyer to Andrew Rapelia with a minute to go in this game to ice it away. Shout out to Nicholas Singleton in this game. He had probably his best game of the season, 9 carries, 88 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He set Penn State's program record with 54 all-purpose touchdowns and 44 rushing touchdowns, both previously held by Saquon Barkley. You might have heard of him before. And then Katron Allen, again, phenomenal in this game. 226 yards rushing. He's been incredible the last 3 or 4 weeks. He finishes the season with a career-high 1,300 yards and 15 rushing touchdowns. 2 incredible football players, Clinton.
Yeah, I know. Again, pregame, I did it again. Damn it. Pick-em show. I said expect a big game from Allen and Singleton. They combined for 312 3 TDs. I mean, you already said it. What an impressive season for Katron Allen individually. Obviously, team accolade-wise, not what they wanted. Also noted that strong Sheffield Duff would probably pose a challenge to Knowles' defense if Kaliak-Manis had time. Well, he clearly had time because Duff had 127 yards in 1 receiving touchdown. I believe all of them combined got him to almost 200 yards receiving. The other 2 weren't as big of a factor. Antoine Raymond, Fantastic season for him. 244
Really
for 1241, 13 TDs, 5.1 yards per carry. My question here is he's only a sophomore. Will he be a Scarlet Knight in 2026? I think that's an interest. I think he will garner interest in the portal. Then I dove into the Penn State stats, Ryan. What a bust for the 3 Penn State wide receiver additions in 2025. Pena,
great.
44, 452, and 1. Ross, 28, 417, and 5. He did get 5 touchdowns. And then Hudson, 23, 288, and 2. At some point, this team has to get a viable wide receiver, a true wide receiver 1, because none of those 3 were it. You cannot bank on trying to have a Tyler Warren year after year to cover your faults.
Yep.
You mentioned Singleton. He also had the all-purpose yards, 5,586 that he took over as well. And then for Rutgers, man, for just the second time in program history, the Scarlet Knights had a quarterback, being Kelly McManus, pass for 3,000 yards, a running back in Raymond go for 1,000, and then a receiver, Duff, have over 1,000 yards in a season. So congratulations, setting some program history. And again, what was a disappointing season for the Scarlet Knights, who will not be bowling this year. Penn State. I'm happy for the Penn State fans. They fought hard and got themselves the bowl eligibility when it felt like they may not win another game at one point in this season. And again, back to the coaching carousel, you better shit or get off the pot, because you're in the slim pickings now, man.
Well, we'll talk about this tomorrow. I think depending on what breaks between now and tomorrow night will tell us a lot about who they're targeting.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be noise about 2 head coaches who could potentially be in the playoff or whose season could be over on Saturday. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow. One more on Kelly McManus. If my math
Brian Dable.
No, yeah, Brian. Yeah, there you go. I believe Ethan Kaliakmanis is now 7th on Rutgers' all-time passing yards and passing touchdowns list, and his 20 passing touchdowns this year are tied for 4th in single-season history for Rutgers.
Props to Ryan Burns, man. He told us 2 years ago or last season that if Kaliakmanis could be consistent, he's a good quarterback.
He got better. He'll be drafted next year.
Absolutely, he will be drafted. I don't know.
He's going to be like that
in the NFL, but
well, I think he's going to be like that Chase Daniel, who has a 15-year career of where he plays
being a backup, 100%,
yeah,
best job in the NFL, man. No expectations.
Like 38 career games or something like that.
Hold a clipboard when you come in. Everyone expects you to lose, and if you do well, everybody's like, "Put him in. He's the new starter."
Yeah, right. 2 more games here. Clinton, Michigan State, 38. Maryland, 28.
On my bingo card.
No, I guess that's how Michigan State was favored in this game. I had money on Maryland, so I was watching this one pretty close. This was a good, fun back-and-forth game.
Would have been another snow game if the Pansies wouldn't have played indoors.
They didn't play it in Forefield. Both teams were moving the ball pretty well in the first half, but Michigan State's defense held pretty well. Maryland had a turnover on downs deep in Michigan State territory. They tried to blow it, Clinton. They had a 17-0 lead, Michigan State did, and then were up 24-7 at half. Maryland got it to 24-21. After 2 touchdowns to open the third quarter. But then after the second of the 2, Alante Brown took the ensuing kickoff 92 yards to re-up that lead to 31-21. This is when I was at, this game was at a crescendo. Almost immediately after that, Maryland marches 75 yards in a minute, 6 seconds to make it 31-28. Maryland missed a 27-yard field goal with 7:38 left in the game that would have tied the game. The following drive, Michigan State moved the ball well. They got deep into Maryland territory, but Alessio Milivojevic was picked off. It was returned 13 yards, and they got a personal foul on top of it, which gave Maryland the ball at midfield with just over 3 minutes to go. But Malik Washington threw 3 incompletes and was sacked on 4th down, leading to a turnover on downs. And then a Stones call from Jonathan Smith, the lasting memory of the Jonathan Smith era. They had a 4th and 7 from the 10-yard line. I think there was like a minute and a half to go. They went for it. Beautiful touchdown pass to make it 38-28 in the final. It's hard to say what this game means for Michigan State in the big picture. Good for you. You did not end the season on a 9-game losing streak, but you finally won a game and you fired your coach. And now Pat Fitzgerald's going to be your coach. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, but it'll be interesting to see how this roster shakes out. I think there's some good players on this roster, but how many of them stick around will be fascinating to see. And then on the Maryland side, I think the only reason that Mike Locksley still has a job is because of Malik Washington. He was 38 of 61 on Saturday for 459 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had an interception on their last drive of the game. He finishes his true freshman season, Clinton, with 2,936 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He also ran for 303 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. He is the future of that program, but he needs help bad.
I've got to cut you off sometimes on these when you get rolling because you just start taking bullet points off my sheet here. My first bullet point was, holy shit, Malik Washington, 61 throws. When you watch a game, you know you're not sitting there counting on your hands how many times a guy throws a ball. And I look at this stat line, I'm like, my God. To trust that, not to trust, but to have a freshman do that just tells you that your run game is ass. Leopards don't change their spots, Ryan, and Maryland cannot run the ball. 75 yards rushing, and 40 of them came in one run with 6 minutes and 12 seconds left in the third quarter.
Clinton,
that is pathetic.
He had 473 attempts this year. That's insane for anybody, let alone a true freshman.
One thing you can say is, hey, he got a lot of reps passing the ball, a lot of things to learn from.
For basis of comparison, Julian Sayin has 327 attempts.
Mm-hmm.
The other true freshman quarterback who has been making noise this year, Bryce Underwood, has 293 attempts. He almost doubled that. That's asinine. Just get a damn run game.
Yep.
Give the kid some help.
Yep. You mentioned Maryland finishing the season. The Terps closed the season with its first 8-game losing streak since the 2015 season.
Oof.
However, did you already mention Washington broke the freshman record?
I did not.
Okay, Washington broke the freshman record for passing yards in a season, 2,963 yards, and he had the 459 against Michigan State, were the second most by a Maryland quarterback in a game, behind only Scott Milanovich, was 498 against Virginia Tech, way back the year after I was born in 1993. This is my favorite bullet point. Sparty gets their first Big Ten win. Doesn't matter. They still can Jonathan Smith. Smith avoids becoming the first Michigan State coach to go winless in conference play for the first time since, catch this name, Duffy Daugherty, 1958 team, which went 0-5-1. Milivojevic, his 4 TD passes, career high in this. He's a freshman, man. I think he's built a strong case if he desires to stay on that he's the starter for this team next year.
Agreed.
Which is an interesting to see where Aiden Childs goes. I don't know if Jonathan Smith's going to get
to whatever
I don't
whack
know,
job that he gets.
I think he's breaking off with that. I think he's going to go somewhere else. And again, the problem for Childs is I don't know how highly sought after he's going to be. I don't see a big program trying to get him.
No, it's a
project.
Malachi Nelson, you're going to Boise State, and then UTEP and hoping for the best, brother.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. But I think Milivojevic, he's got a really good chance to take this Michigan State job next year. He built on the opportunity he was given. Fitzgerald isn't going to just walk in here and be like, "You're done." Like, I think he's going to be open to taking him, and there's nothing better than already having your quarterback spot essentially secure. And Pat Fitzgerald carries clout, man. He's not going to walk in here with Michigan State pressure and be like, "You got to have us in the playoff in 2 years." Like, they know what this rebuild is. They know what it is. And again, we'll get to it, but we'll see what happens. I don't want to talk anymore about the coaching.
No, and I mean, you got to think too, like, who better are you going to get, realistically going to get in the portal? Because you're not going to be a destination place.
No.
You have
you are not a beach vacation.
You'll have a redshirt sophomore who, over game log here, started the last 4 games of the season for you. He had a clunker in there against Penn State where he had only 128 yards, but he threw for 255 yards at least in his other 3 games and was above 63% completion percentage in all of those. 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in those starts. So something definitely to build off of for sure. Could be worse. Could be a lot worse. Last game of the weekend for us to talk about, Illinois 20, Northwestern 13. Clinton, this was a beautifully ugly game. Between the snow, the turnovers, just a lot of nonsense in this game. Between interceptions, fumbles lost, and turnovers on downs, we had 7 combined turnovers, Clinton. 5 of them came in the fourth quarter. let me set the stage for you here. It's 4th and 1. Northwestern has the ball at the Illinois 10-yard line. They are down 17-10. They're on a drive that to this point has gone 12 plays, 70 yards. It's taken almost half a quarter off the clock. Preston Stone fumbles on a 4th and 1 scramble. Oops, not great. Literally the next drive, Luke Altmaier gets strip sacked. Northwestern gets the ball back at the 1-yard line. 3 plays later, they lost 7 yards and had to kick a field goal to make it 17-13. Illinois gets the ball back. They punt it. Northwestern has a chance to take the lead. Preston Stone is picked off by Miles Scott. He returns it to the Northwestern 17-yard line, which set up a 3-and-out field goal by Illinois to, again, take the lead to 2013 at this point. The very next series, Stone is picked off again by Scott at midfield, except this time Illinois punts. Northwestern gets the ball just past midfield. 4 straight incompletions lead to a turnover on downs to end the game. Not pretty. Not a pretty game, but, when there's snow, that tends to happen. Preston Stone was intercepted 3 times in this game. Bad Preston Stone came out again. Clinton.
I just said he was as cold as the weather that he played in, man. If you have a Britney Spears sound, oops, I did it again, that would be a perfect song for the story of Preston Stone's season, especially in this game. As you already mentioned, Miles Scott picking him off twice in the last 5 minutes. The most beautiful thing of this game was the weather that they played in until they cleaned the field off, and I was pretty pissed off once they cleaned the field off. Again, props to the ground crew. I know Brett Bielema was shouting them out post-game, but damn, there's just something about snow on a field that is just gorgeous. I wouldn't personally want to be receivers running routes or trying to cut and pivot on that type of a field, especially when it's turf. But overall, man, just not the season for Illinois we expected. There was a ton of playoff hype last February for this Illinois team. Ryan and I slightly pushed our chips in on that early, and then we told you guys to back off because here's where Illinois finished, 8-4. And Sonny Verma told all of you Illinois fans who listen to us to not be disappointed if this season went that way and you finished 8-4. This is a season you would pine for so many years for this program. Do not be disappointed in this. For Northwestern, pesky team, you're going bowling. Again, I don't know what the situation is with Preston Stone. I don't know if there's a way he can finagle. He is a senior. I don't know if he can finagle eligibility. Parker Navarro's out here trying for 7, so why can't Preston Stone try? I don't know. At this point, just go get a job at Avis and Budget and start doing rental car stuff. No Komalafe in this game here. Robbie Prickell was the leading rusher for Northwestern with 22 and 82, and then Hyman 2 and 11. So I think Khalil Valentine, Ryan, he was a name we mentioned last year. He was a freshman running back last year, sophomore this year. Starting to come on a little bit for the Illini and a name to watch heading into next year to potentially leave this room. For Illinois, obviously, I already said the disappointing season from the standpoint of what the national expectations were. Where do you turn after Luke Altmaier's gone? His swan song, it's done. It'll likely be in the bowl game. I can't envision that he would sit that out. Where do they turn for the future of this team under center? I'm impressed more with Northwestern's overall season than I am with Illinois, though. It would have been nice to see Illinois push towards a 10-2 and possibly get to the playoff to have something different in there. But again, overall, what I took from this game was the prettiest thing was the snow, and that was about all I had for that one.
Yeah, Komalafe was questionable coming into the game. I'm assuming that they did not want to try to use him in not ideal conditions with whatever was ailing him in that one. The good for Northwestern, you get a bowl game, and unless they get portaled, or if Wildy goes pro, I guess he's only a junior, but you should get Wildy and Hayden Elegon back next year at wide receiver.
You'll get Komalafe back.
You'll get Komalafe back as well, which should help you with getting another QB, because I don't know if Preston Stone has any eligibility left unless he has like an injury redshirt or something. But the bad is Pat Fitzgerald's back in your league, and I'm sure he's going to want to try to kill you. Yes. Not great. Anyway, good with Illinois. Good job in this game being tough on defense and not crumbling when it would have been easy for them to do so after last week. They now have a chance to get that 9th win at their bowl game, which would still be 9-4, not the season that they hope for, but you start stringing nice seasons like that together. That's all you can ask for. take the next step
Ryan,
next year.
I want to throw a surprise in. If you have my favorite sound ready, I have my player picked already. If not, I'll
Okay.
give you a few seconds. But we'll not. I'm going to get a text from my coworker, Adam, tomorrow. Like, what the fuck? I wasn't expecting that at the end of the show. Rolling player of the week, week 14. Katron Allen had a fantastic week, but I gave it to Emmett Johnson. It was a career-high day for him as well. 29 carries, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 7.5 yards per carry. The reason I lean Johnson is because he was literally the only bright spot of his team in a rivalry matchup. And, Penn State's unrivaled, so, their game didn't matter that much. So congratulations, Emmett Johnson. You were the ITP Roll-In Player of the Week. We'll probably do... Actually, that's probably it. That's it for Roll-In Player of the Week. We're going to keep that as a regular season award because there's not enough variety. And if both running backs suck ass in the Big Ten championship, then nobody gets it. So it's a regular season award.
Your Big Ten play or your Roll-In Player of the Week, C.J. Donaldson, 3 carries for 4 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Christ. The guy who runs the tallest and highest out of any running back in America.
Yeah, so that'll be it for tonight. We'll be back 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. We'll be back 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursday this week. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk a little coaching carousel, and then we'll kind of set the stage for what's at stake in the playoff this weekend. Things to look for, particularly at the back end, where there could be a little bit of chaos still. Actually, a lot of bit of chaos.
We need a coaching carousel sound, like a little merry-go-round or whatever. Does that exist?
If I remember when I get home from work tomorrow, maybe I'll put something together. And then Thursday, we will do kind of an extended preview talking about Ohio State and Indiana, and then we will pick that game, and we'll just real quick pick the rest of the
Another one's for fun.
Games. Yep. Why not?
Absolutely.
That is all for us tonight.
And then I don't know. We might obviously the schedule is going to be fluctuating because no matter what teams make the playoffs, the games are all on weird ass days. So.
Yeah, I think. Hold on, let me look at the CFP schedule because I think it's the same as last year, where it's like a 19th and a 20th. Yeah, first round games are the 19th and the 20th, which I don't have my calendar pulled up. Let me pull the calendar up. Okay, whatever. Jesus Christ. That would be a Friday, Saturday. It's probably gonna be the same thing that it did last year. One Friday.
There's a Friday, Saturday. It's January 9th and January 10th.
Well, that's the third round.
Mm-hmm. I know because my mom stuck our family Christmas party on the 10th.
Nice.
I said, you do realize that's going to be probably...
No, it's 8th and 9th. It's 8th and 9th this year.
8th and 9th? There's no 10th?
There's no 10th.
Is the 10th a Saturday of January?
Yes, that's why. They're doing the Thursday, Friday, so they don't go against the NFL playoffs.
Shiznick. Then something I read was wrong. Well, I'm super happy then.
Yeah, we have the 19th and the 20th for the first round games. The quarterfinals are on December 31st, January 1st. Then there will be one semifinal game on Thursday the 8th, one on Friday the 9th, with the national championship game set for January 19th.
All right. Let's do it.
So I would assume, we talk about this later this week, I assume we'll probably do Sunday next week to get the playoff field in there as well, and then who knows what we'll do after that. We'll figure it out
figure something out.
Depending on, we definitely have 3 teams in. We might have Notre Dame in too.
Yeah, I think what we did a little bit last year, try to get some beat writers on from the teams we cover, give you a little playoff insight preview for us, and I don't know if we're going to go the route of trying to get the opposing teams on.
We'll see.
Unless Dale's got some magical connection in his bag. So
yeah, we'll see. Anyway, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be back